Ever present, night hangs over the shadowed vale, and a silvery moonlit mist obscures your vision. A wolf howls in the distance, and a flock of bats soar overhead, leathery wings flapping. A chill rides up your spine, and you get the odd feeling something watches you from the mist. A predatory presence, simultaneously bestial and human. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and in case you didn't know or missed out, I did a almost 6-hour live stream where I went through Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and if you missed that, I got my early review copies of the books, and I answered most of everyone's questions. When the book releases next week officially on the 18th, I'll do the standard coverage you expect here on the channel, where we go through and talk about all the new stuff and give you opinions and whatnot on all the different things. And as per usual, I'll be doing a giveaway of at least 2 copies of the book, if not more than that. But I wanted to kind of distill that down into what I guess I'll call answer a bunch of questions that I've gotten multiple times, both in the live stream and in the comments, as well as sort of give you what I'll call my 10 things you should know before you pick up Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And as I said, I was going to be doing a giveaway. I'll use that as a segue to talk about the sponsor for today's video, Describe. Now, you're familiar with Describe. We've mentioned them here on the channel before, and that intro, aptly named Dreadplane, was provided by their teams of writers here. And that, if you're unfamiliar with Describe, I'll just give you a quick rundown. It's an online tool that anyone can use. There's a free and a paid version that scales in a variety of different ways based on what you're looking for. And it can provide you narratively immersive scenes for you to use in a variety of different things. Places like the Dreadplane we just talked about, monster descriptions, spell descriptions, and cartographer, which is a bunch of maps that you can kind of see here. Also, it's got integration with virtual tabletop. And they add new scenes every week. We now sit at over 2,300 scenes, and you can see all of the recent ones that were added here. There are testimonials talking about how great they are, and they're even doing a massive giveaway in May, giving away things like a Blue Yeti Nano, as well as physical items, digital items, a whole year subscription, the Hero membership, which is the about $8 a month version that gives you access to everything, but you can mix and match and change up whatever you want to subscribe to if you so choose, by changing and getting just what you want. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel and helping show Describe that Nerd Immersion has awesome fans, there's a link in the description, and you can go ahead and use the coupon code NerdImmersion to get 10% off your first payment. So, without further ado, let's jump into 10 things you should know before you pick up Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Number 10. Cyre or Cyre 1313, the Mourning Rail, that domain? Yes, it's Eberron. I got this question I don't know how many times during the live stream, and yeah, it's right here. This is even a picture that's associated with it. It's tied to Eberron. So there's officially a domain of dread for Eberron. It has to do with this whole calamity of this train, which is the kind of the Mourning Rail, and it is the hallmarks of it are escape from disaster, the lightning rail itself, and the Dark Lord of that realm is the last passenger. So if you're wondering if there's now official domain of dread for Eberron, yes, there is. Number 9. There is no what I'll call real appendix or index. We only have a singular page appendix, and it is a spirit board, right? This sort of magic item that is similar to like a Ouija board, and that's it. That's that one page. That's the end. That's the only appendix in the book. So if you're looking for things to be grouped together for easy reference, something like that, like with magic items or whatnot, no. Number 8. Speaking of magic items, it looks like there is just one throughout the entire book. It is embedded within a specific domain of dread, and it's kind of just a cursed reskin of a magic item we already have. I'm going to wait to officially give that when I do a magic item section on this when the book is officially out, because I'll be able to use D&D Beyond to sort and determine if there are any new magic items with this as the source. But from my flip through of everything, it looks like there is just the one magic item. And again, it's kind of something we already have, just with a curse attached to it. Number 7. The table of contents was posted online, but there are 22 things listed as, quote, other domains of dread. that started with the Eberron one we just talked about and ends with Zarisia, those are just a blurb. They do not have maps. They do not have full-blown information of any kind. The primary domains of Ravenloft that starts with Barovia and ends with, I'm going to go with Valakan or Valachan, those have actual information about the Dark Lord, adventure hooks, stuff about the world itself. The ones that are listed again as, quote, other domains of dread, those 22, they are literally just, it gives you the title, it gives you who the Dark Lord is by name, and then kind of what the hallmarks of that adventure are. Is it disaster, horror, what are the kind of the main basis? And then it's just a block of text. It's nothing too crazy, and you can kind of see it here. This particular page has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different domains right here on this page. So don't expect a ton of information on those 22. I got a lot of questions about Sithicus, so I guess you can have that as a bonus one. Sithicus is not one of the ones covered in the book. Number 6. The Bagman. I did a whole video on the Bagman, a sort of really awesome, interesting boogeyman style creature that is basically an evil creature that lives within your bag of holding. There are no stats for the Bagman in this book. Similar to what it's kind of described as, the Bagman is kind of a mythical, maybe a legend, maybe not a real creature. And again, here's a little more picture of the Bagman. Is kind of like a boogeyman. So there are no stats for the Bagman in this book. So if you want to quantify the Bagman with stats, that's something you'll have to come up with. Otherwise, it can kind of, I think it's kind of intentional that it's sort of a, you know, if everybody always knows that, you know, if it has stats, we can kill it. Well, this kind of makes it a boogeyman, and it could just, again, be a myth and not actually be real. Or it could be sort of a weird foe working behind the scenes that no one's ever knows about, or whatever the case may be, urban legend. But yes, stats for the Bagman, which is kind of a bummer because I would love to see what the abilities it has were. Number 5. And going off that, there are no stats for the Darklords. For those, all those different domains that we mentioned, I told you the ones that have the full, you know, built out domains. There are no stats for the Darklords in there. The ones I mentioned earlier that were just blurbs don't even really touch more on the Darklord other than like mentioning them by name. There's more about how to roleplay the Darklords in the more spelled out domains. And while there isn't, I guess there's a caveat or an asterisk there, it will say, you know, you can reference this monster, whether it's in Van Richten's or, you know, if the, you know, if you're doing like Barovia, right, for Strahd, it says you can use the standard vampire stat block or use the stat block from Curse of Strahd. But let's say yours has a mummy, it's going to say use the Mummy Lord stat block from the monster manual. And sometimes they give you like a little bit of information like, oh, you might want to tweak this, but I don't feel like it's enough to truly consider them unique. And again, the vampire spellcaster stat block in the monster manual is a sort of sidebar. If you just use the standard vampire, it doesn't have any magic, and Strahd is a very accomplished spellcaster. So again, I would have liked, I mean, the book's 256 pages, so I get that they were probably at length, and that might have been something they had to cut, but I would have loved to seen specific stat blocks, or again, I'll say it, release it as an errata, release it as a free PDF for folks who want it. Or even if you released it, I mean, people might get a little annoying at the concept of basically DLC in their D&D book. But if you charged people a couple of bucks or did it as part of an Extra Life thing and said, hey, for $5 donated to help sick kids for Extra Life, you can get stat blocks for all of the Darklords, I'd buy it. Number 4. There are indeed updates to the subclasses, the Spirits Bard and the Undead Warlock. There are updates. Most of them have remained largely unchanged from the Unearthed Arcana, but the updates that they did make are quite impactful and may change in some instances whether or not you want to play that class. Their standard stuff we've kind of seen across the board in other updates in the past, but you know, there's none of these whole, if you do damage, it now happens all the time. Those kind of things have been updated to once on your turn when you deal damage. or once a turn when you deal damage, you can benefit from X. That's the necrotic damage thing. For the Warlock, it used to be whenever you dealt damage. Now it's once a turn you can do it, kind of hampering things. And in some people's minds, that makes it unplayable to them. But again, minor updates. The majority of what you saw in the Unearthed Arcana is going to arrive in full. And again, I'll do full coverage when the book is officially out. But again, the change is minor. This general theme and feel of the class still remains. And I was shocked how little was changed. But the things that were could be pretty impactful depending on how you want to play it. Number 3. The adventure in the book is set to start with level 1 characters and is designed to end with level 3 characters. It's an intro adventure, and considering it's sort of an intro to horror really officially in D&D, this is something that they keep at low level because, again, when you get to high levels in D&D, I feel like the horror aspect is hard to maintain as you just have so many resources and your characters are usually so strong. It's hard to really instill fear and horror, terror kind of stuff in them. Number 2. There is no more dual typing for any of the Gothic lineages. They are now just a singular type, not humanoid and undead or whatever. It would be just humanoid. And they got some serious updates, and I like them a lot. They kind of took into account whether or not you would be gaining this lineage as time went on. I already had a race, and then this was applied to it. Or if you chose this at character creation, it gives you other benefits. It's a very nice touch. I really like it, and I think it really will help to sell people on the concept of using these, because it's like I could be an elf that becomes a Dhampir, and I don't necessarily lose all of the stuff I had from being an elf, which is pretty cool in the long run. Number 1. Chapter 4, the Horror Toolkit section, is the best part of the entire book. It was something I was not planning on really enjoying. I didn't think I would like it as much. I thought I would probably be more into the monsters. It is, without a doubt, in my mind, the best part of the book. Not only does it give you an entire section on curses, how to go about creating your own curses, and this is things that are more powerful than, say, something you could just remove with the remove curse spell. A whole different ways to activate curses, sample curses, and so on, which is very well done. There's a whole section on fear, adding fear as a separate thing to your game, as well as stress, and how to stress a character, not like for the player, but adding a stress factor to the game, adding seeds of fear and how that can impact different things as well, beyond just the frightened condition. There's a whole section on haunted traps and how haunt effects work there. And probably my favorite part is the survivor section, which is to play a truly horror experience. They have stat blocks that basically you start at essentially level 1, but you don't have a character class or anything. You have these specific stat blocks of Apprentice, Disciple, Sneak, and Squire, and it is basically you are trying to be like your average person in a horror movie, trying to survive it. And you can be put through different things, and if you manage to make it through, you can add new things called survivor talents, which are essentially feats that help improve your survivor. But survivors in this way can never get past level 3, and it significantly reduced the kind of abilities you have to, again, instill that sort of horror aspect. And it's pretty interesting. I think it's a really cool concept. I think it could be a lot of fun to run survivors. This would basically be like, again, picture your favorite horror movie. Usually one person survives at the end of those movies. Not all the time, but usually one person survives, and they usually become significantly hardened or stronger by the end. And if that ever does have a sequel, they are usually the grizzled veteran of whatever the specific instance was. I think it would be really cool to start with survivors, play through to level 3 and have done this, and then maybe from there start at level 1 with class levels. Having dealt with all this, you've built up the backstory of what you did before you sort of became an adventurer, and then now you can roll into whatever the campaign is, Curse of Strahd or what have you. So Also give you a freebie, the backgrounds. They added something really unique. While they do have backgrounds, fully used backgrounds, they added new background sort of agnostic features. So everybody knows you kind of have your one background feature tied to whatever background you choose. They just added like 4 or 5 new background features that you could take any background that you have and just apply this to it, or obviously create your own background and use this as the new background feature. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I tried to keep this relatively quick, but I wanted to go through and say, hey, if you want to pick up the book immediately and you don't feel like waiting for me to do my full-blown review on it, and you just wanted a quick hit, what are some things I need to know, or you're wondering where in my 5-hour live stream I answered this specific question for you, well, hopefully this helps. These were some of the most common things I saw, so I thought I'd put them out there. So thank you once again to Describe for sponsoring this video. Again, links in the description. And thank you to my patrons over on Patreon who are awesome and continue to support me in all that I do. Keep your eye on the social media for giveaways. I usually every time do a giveaway of one collector's edition copy and one standard edition copy of whatever the new book is. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.